Why did Mark Walter sell the Lakers so soon? Millions of people around the world call themselves Lakers fans. They don't own a piece of the team. They don't sit in the owner's suite. They don't negotiate billion-dollar transactions. They simply watch. They buy the jerseys. They argue about the trades. They celebrate the championships. And they keep coming back year after year. So when the Lakers change owners again, there's a question that matters far more than who made the better financial deal. What does this mean for the team we love? Because the Lakers are a business, a very valuable business, but they're also something much bigger to the people who follow them. And right now, something remarkable is happening. Mark Walter agreed to acquire controlling interest in the Lakers at a valuation of about $10 billion. The NBA approved that transaction in October 2025. And now, Walter has agreed to sell his controlling interest at a reported $12.5 billion valuation. That's a massive financial story, but it's also a Lakers story. And when we look at the timeline, Luka becoming the centerpiece, LeBron leaving, Walter's short period of ownership, and developments surrounding his broader business interests, we have to ask, why is Mark Walter selling the Lakers so soon? And perhaps even more importantly, what should Lakers fans actually make of it? That's what we're going to examine. Not rumors, not political theories presented as facts, not what we want the answer to be, what the evidence actually tells us. But there's another reason this ownership change deserves a closer look. Not because the Lakers are being sold. We already knew the franchise had entered a new era.
What's strange
is how quickly it's happening again. In June 2025, Mark Walter agreed to acquire majority control of the Lakers from the Buss family at a valuation of about $10 billion. The NBA approved that transaction in October 2025. And now, Walter has agreed to sell his controlling interest to a group led by former Disney CEO Bob Iger and investor Joshua Kushner. The reported valuation? $12.5 billion. If approved, it would set a record as the highest valued team sale ever reported. The transaction still requires approval from the NBA Board of Governors and remains subject to due diligence. So the obvious question is, why? Why would someone spend roughly $10 billion to take control of the Lakers, step into an organization already entering a major transition, and then agree to sell the franchise roughly 14 months after agreeing to buy it? That's what makes this story so unusual. And there's another reason this question has become even more interesting. Mark Walter's broader business empire is facing federal and regulatory scrutiny. Federal prosecutors and securities regulators are investigating $16 billion in potentially undisclosed related party loans involving two Delaware insurers tied to Walter and his broader business empires. The companies received grand jury subpoenas, and the SEC is conducting a parallel investigation. Reporting has also described a dramatic change in one insurer's reported affiliated exposure from roughly $1 billion to about $16 billion. Now, that does not prove the investigation caused Walter to sell the Lakers. We need to be very careful about that. An investigation is not a finding of wrongdoing, and we don't currently have evidence establishing that federal authorities forced or directed the Lakers' sale. But the timing deserves examination, because this isn't simply a story about a basketball team changing owners. It's a story about a billionaire acquiring one of the most valuable sports franchises in the world, and then, remarkably quickly, agreeing to sell it at a valuation $2.5 billion higher than the valuation attached to his original acquisition. That does not mean Walter personally made $2.5 billion. A change in franchise valuation is not the same thing as personal profit. But it does mean that someone was willing to place a dramatically higher value on the Lakers only about 14 months after Walter agreed to buy them. So what changed? Was this simply an ordinary financial opportunity? Did the Lakers become too valuable to turn down? Could developments surrounding Walter's broader business interests have played a role? Or is there something else happening behind the scenes that we don't yet know? That's what we're going to examine, and we're going to separate the facts from the speculation. Mark Walter's Lakers era may have lasted less than a year after NBA approval, and now the Lakers are preparing for another change in ownership. There's another important piece of the story. According to reporting from the Wall Street Journal and subsequent reporting by other outlets, Walter was not actively looking to sell the Lakers when Joshua Kushner approached him. The deal reportedly came together extremely quickly, with the parties reaching an agreement within roughly 3 days. That matters because it weakens one simple theory. Walter bought the Lakers intending to flip them almost immediately. We don't have evidence that was his original plan. Instead, the reporting suggests the opportunity to sell developed after he had already become the controlling owner, and the offer was enormous. Walter agreed to sell at a reported valuation of $12.5 billion. That's approximately 25% higher than the $10 billion valuation attached to his original acquisition. Again, that doesn't mean Walter personally pocketed $2.5 billion, but it does mean the market, or at least this buyer group, was willing to assign a dramatically higher value to the Lakers in a remarkably short period of time. And that alone provides a rational reason for an investor to consider selling.
So,
why is Mark Walter selling the Lakers so soon? Right now, there isn't enough evidence to reduce the answer to one simple explanation. We can identify the enormous increase in valuation. We can identify the unusually short period of ownership. We can identify the broader federal and regulatory scrutiny surrounding Walter's business interests. And we can identify the fact that the buyer group approached Walter rather than the Lakers simply being put on the market. But we should be careful about turning those facts into a conclusion they don't yet prove, because sometimes the most responsible answer is, we know what happened. We have some clues about why it happened, but we don't know the entire story yet. And that's exactly why this ownership change deserves a closer look. Because before we can understand why Walter is selling, we have to understand what was happening to the Lakers at the same time. Because this wasn't simply a change in ownership. It was a change in the Lakers themselves.